Forsaken just dropped their biggest update yet, changing a survivalist to a sentinel, adding 2 giant new maps and like 50 new skins. But that's not really what this video is about. During the making of the previous video, I hyper-analyzed the maps and I got a really good idea of how map dependent this game has become. The recent few major characters have had a more and more complicated lineup of abilities to each survivor, and the maps seem to be leaning into a direction that is a bit less focused on gameplay consistency. This video is a rant about the seemingly upcoming feature to Forsaken, map voting, where players can select the map they want to play next. I really dislike the idea of this feature being in the game, which I've just split into this video into chapters of why. I highly suggest watching this video in order to fully get what I'm talking about, so let's get started. Before diving right into the new features teased for the update, I'll begin with an issue I hinted back in my previous video. But to rip off the band-aid, the maps in Forsaken are very different from each other from a gameplay perspective. The difference between the small, flat, open grounds of glass houses and the gigantic Pirate's Bay calls for a vastly different round outcome for the killer and sometimes the survivors. The killers are extremely map dependent, and the best example of this is probably 1x. His projectiles are completely flat, so you could probably already imagine the difference in the outcomes of the rounds when you're playing in Pirate's Bay, which has extreme elevation changes, to Planet Voss, which is perfectly flat. Another good example is Dusakar, who primarily needs to protect someone from afar, not to be killed quickly. The issue with this is of course maps that are more enclosed, such as Horror Hotel. This makes Dusakar go from useful to almost pointless unless the killer decides to primarily ignore you. With the vast differences in abilities that each character has, some need smaller, more enclosed maps, and others need larger, more open maps. There's almost no in between for this issue, so map dependency is basically the idea of some characters requiring a certain map to be versatile at their full potential, and some killers needing certain maps to be viable. So I'll go over each map in this game to highlight the true differences this game offers. Brandon's Place is a generally pretty flat map with 2 large points of elevation, notably both pretty common survivor camping areas. This map greatly favors Jason and John Doe for its small size, and Cool Kid less due to its hiding spots. 1x is decent for this map, but the slopes seem to be a real annoyance when playing this killer. This map is still survivor sided due to the amount of hiding spots on top of the elevations, camping spots, and looping areas. Glass Houses is arguably the smallest map in the game, also having 2 large elevation camping spots. This map is best for both Jason and Cool Kid due to its size, preferable for John Doe for its trapping spots, and once again an inconvenience for 1x, but still favorable. This map is extremely killer sided, with only a few survivors being notable in it, which are Dusakar and maybe Builderman. Yorick's Resting Place is an absolutely giant map, being probably the least killer-sided in the game. It's too big for Cool Kid due to any lack of tracking abilities, it's decent for Jason, John Doe can't trap you, and 1x is abysmal on it. There's so many elevation spots, including the entire mansion, the hill it sits on, the well, the bridges, the parks, and the cemetery. This map proves to be a devastating sight for any killer arguably except Jason, especially with support characters as well as guests being masterful on it, plus all 3 survivalists having the entire world to run. Planet Voss is remotely the opposite. It is extremely small, compact, and notably has 0 major elevation points. This map is so insanely contrasting to Yorick's Resting Place, it's almost baffling to imagine it's in the same game. 1x is unstoppable, Cool Kid and Jason are usually really good, and John Doe is okay at best. This map shuts down the chances of Dusakar and Chance having an easy time, but provides many hiding spots for other survivors. Moving on to Horror Hotel, this map is essentially almost entirely indoors with mostly very short ceilings and countless hiding spots and corners to turn. To be expected, this map is godly for 1x and John Doe, but a bit less favorable for Jason and especially Cool Kid. 1x and Doe could punish the common strategy to hide behind walls and both escape from the killer and or attack. This map can be extremely annoying for the killers and probably offers the largest margin of gameplay difference when compared to Yorick's. Cool Carnival is my favorite map in the game though, and as I exaggerated in my previous video, is what I think the most balanced map in the game. Cool Carnival has the perfect amount of hiding spots, elevation, and open area. The map is a perfect size too and benefits basically every single character in some way, shape, or form. And for the last map, Assassin's Grounds, this map is pretty good now. The original edition of this map was extremely dodgy on release, but after some major changes such as the cave blocking off the upstairs and flattening the hill, I've got to greatly appreciate how balanced this map has become for pretty much every survivor. So that's all the maps reviewed based on how they contrast to each other and to really highlight how differently some round outcomes could be. In the recent update adding 2 time, 2 new maps were added to being Underground War and Pirate Bay. Both of these maps are very comparable to the rant I had earlier reviewing each map, but they also both share an extremely concerning aspect that I feel the need to go over. Both of these maps are just huge. Underground War is a 2-layered map with a huge, generally flat landscape on top and a way more intricate layer on the bottom with more pillars and walls. With several areas to traverse between the 2 layers and a number of killer-only walls, this is probably, if not the largest map in the game when it comes to total area. As cool of a map as this is, it does not work for this game. It takes way too long to go from one area to another. There's an insane amount of walls and layers, and it's basically hell to be killer on this map. It's basically too large for Cool Kid to find anyone. 1x is pretty self-explanatory, and John and Jason could work sometimes with killer-only walls. It almost feels baffling to me that this map is in the same pool as something like Planet Boss, as I said earlier. Pirates Bay is almost just as bad, having more slopes and looping points than I could possibly count, as well as, of course, being absolutely gigantic. From purely a gameplay perspective, I once again highly dislike this map's intentional playing style, and I think they absolutely should have stuck with what made Cool Carnival and Assassin's Grounds so good. These new maps are throwing this game's gameplay style way out of proportion. I've pretty much answered the question at this point of why map voting will be such a dangerous addition to the game. The community voted overwhelmingly positive to this idea of map voting being in the game under 2 possible options, and agonizingly the option of letting all players get to vote won. Why? Do they not understand how awful being killer could be when the option is present? I've clearly stated here how extremely map dependent this game is starting to become, especially with the new recent maps. So imagine you're a 1x main and your server starts to spam Pirates Bay or Yorick's. I genuinely mean it where I say you could never play a versatile map ever again with the choice in the hands of the survivors. I think we both know that the community is going to come together and find the worst map per killer and stick to it, making winning levels easier on survivors' end. All it takes is some basic knowledge of the maps or a small group of friends in a single server to override the entire election every round and win farm. The other possible option was just letting the killer vote, which, if this disaster ends up being added to the game, it definitely is the better option of the two, but still dodgy. The killer would just immediately vote which map benefits themselves the most, and, for example, the sheer difference between getting Cool Kid on Glass Houses to Underground War is probably insane. And letting the killer always vote themselves as a beneficial map just feels a bit too off. I do think Forsaken is the smallest bit survivor-sided, but any kind of addition of map voting could strongly sway these factors one way or another. But either way, I think no map voting is easily the best option to keep this game somewhat consistent even with its contrasting maps. If there were to be any sort of partial solution to this, I think we should be able to hide whoever we have equipped, as we can already do so with some of our other stats. Currently, I'm expected to swiftly switch my killer equipped at the last second to people who don't know who will actually play, but this is just both tedious and stupid, and the server can just learn who you play the most often, swaying me away from my main. Whatever, you get what I mean. Map voting for Forsaken is very unhealthy in my opinion, and I personally hope to see this decision either greatly messed with or reverted. The community voted overwhelmingly positive to the map voting, for obvious reasons, so I felt nothing less than obligated for a video like this. But rant is over. Sorry I kept this one a bit different from my other videos, but I still hope you listen to my points anyway, so have a good day.